Let's get one more question from the panel, then I want to open it up to the audience, and we've got a number of people here that want to ask questions today.
So you spoke about neighborhood by neighborhood, but as the capital city, how are you going to influence other cities to follow suit and follow things like Safety Stop Act and all of the bike laws?
The regional question.
Yeah, I love this question because often, especially in this race, every question we're asked is, what will you do in Denver? And the reality is we could do everything perfectly in Denver. We're not going to improve our air quality alone. I don't believe we're going to address getting our unhoused neighbors to safer, to house and shelter that we need to alone. I don't think we can even address fully our affordability challenge alone. So to me, this is just one more of those examples where we need to be in partnership. We're building a system for a region, not even just for our city. I've had the chance to work with the Metro Mayor's Caucus. Did I lose you? Or am I? Go down, go down, go up. How are, oh, great. Let's just pretend you can hear me. And I sound amazing what I'm saying. For years, I've had the chance, both when I was chief of staff to John Hickenlooper, but when I was the head of the chamber, I partnered with the Metro Mayor's Caucus, which is 38 mayors in the metro area, or 34. And what's amazing about that is I think, is a great place to come together and partner and really think about these bigger picture. I took to those mayors my plan to address homelessness. And it was basically in partnership with them, and 7 of them have already endorsed it and endorsed me as a candidate for mayor. I share that with you because I think not only is it critical, but I think my existing relationships will help us have those partnerships and make the kind of investments that allow you to actually seamlessly travel from Denver to Lakewood and not even realize that your bike route transitioned to another city.
Yeah, that's critical. You know, I think most people have no concept of where they're crossing the municipal line. They really don't care, right?
Yeah.
Lakewood, Denver, I just want to be able to bike smoothly across.
Yeah, and safely.
Yes, yes. Thank you for emphasizing that. Let's open it up to the audience. Who would like to ask a question of Ms. Brough? Stephen.
Thank you so much. I just want to preface this because right now what I feel like the city is doing is building bike lanes and just flexing on the number of lanes we're building. And then all of a sudden we see like 4 blocks of bike lane that's just a spur to nowhere and doesn't really connect a system. So we talk about like pausing and thinking more strategically about it. Is there a metric that you believe, such as, I don't know, % bike commuters or percentage of single car commuters, that would more accurately reflect how well we're doing with regards to our bicycle infrastructure and connecting neighborhoods and getting people to actually bike places as opposed to just seeing the fact that there's a protected bike lane?
Yeah, I love this question because the other thing that happens when we make these investments, if you never see a cyclist in it, it just pisses off every car. Am I not supposed to use cuss words? So sorry.
I think we can swear.
Okay, it just pisses off every driver out there, right? That we have taken a lane or slowed their roll. And so some of the things we were talking about, I rode with, on Sunday, a group of us rode and just looked at where you could put counters that can track how many people are coming through on a lane. And you start to have an appreciation for when we built it right and how it's being used. Is the use a scooter, is the use a cyclist, or is the use a pedestrian? And making sure we're making the right investments. And that's a way where you could do that pilot and then use that data to say, this should be permanent and we're going to keep moving in this direction. So I really think we have to focus not just on, we have miles and miles of lanes where none of us would ever take our bike, versus we actually have lanes where we're in them and we're using them. And there's, so I also will tell you, number of deaths on bikes, I think, is part of that count for me as well. Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate that. You know, it does feel like the city's doing a lot, if not everything they can. We're seeing more concrete, what you call those, where you block a lane off and you make everybody either make a left or a right. So I know the city's really aggressively trying to do what they can. Can you kind of address the rumbling that we hear that Denver's done a lot of reports, there's been a lot of studies, but there hasn't been enough implementation? Is there anything you would want to say to that, or how you might handle it differently if you were in charge?
Did you take that out of my book?
Yeah. We're really good at planning, is what I would say. We are skilled at planning. We've got a lot of them. I vote we start implementing. And, you know, I think one of the things that we're not great at in government is we sort of feel like you have to prove every single point before we make an investment. And the truth is, we can do some of these and test them out, and the risk is pretty minimal. And to see, does it work? Does it make sense? And I'll just give you an example. It doesn't have to do with biking, but it does have to do with placemaking. I want you to think about Larimer Square. How many years has that street been closed to traffic? Seriously. And when you look at it, what is the barricade? You would think we just closed it yesterday, right? This is where we can make a commitment that says, I think we're going to keep this one closed now. And we could put in pretty planters and, you know, do the kinds of things you would do to actually placemake it. I think we could do the same with testing bike lanes and walkways and say, yeah, that works. Let's put it in permanently now and go.
I love the business mindset. Yeah, you're basically saying what a lot of businesses say, which is let's get out there and try it, and if it fails, we'll learn from the failure. And yeah, there's not enough of that in government. I appreciate that you bring that mindset. Do we have anyone else in the audience who would like to ask a question? I know that. Oh, here we go. Hang on a second. Introduce yourself and.
Yeah. Sure. Hi, my name's Connor Locke, and I moved here from Charleston, South Carolina, about close to 4 years ago. And my gosh, it's a huge step up from, especially for biking here. But a question, so I was a big part of the advocacy group in Charleston to create equitable transportation. And something we ran into was, it was interesting right before this, talking about the studies. And they would sink so much money into all these study after study after study, and then with no results afterwards. And I feel like that it was almost a, you know, municipal way to just, okay, we spent all the money. It's just to push it away because they never wanted to actually capitalize on it. So how much of the actual like research and everything is going into this before you say, hey, we need to take an action?
Yeah, I think here's what I think happens, having worked for government in my career. I think what happens is people say, well, golly, something could go wrong. And if something goes wrong, we could be sued. And if we're sued, that could cost us a lot of money. And so we should spend some more time studying and sort of making sure we think it's, you know, really safe. And I'm all about safety. I'm all about getting it right. But there is a point, and it's often way earlier than we discover it when you're risk averse, where you got to say you will never have enough information to make these decisions. Like, and I'm going to give you an example. I worked at MSU Denver this last year, Metropolitan State University here in Denver. And this is a public institution, pretty risk averse. And we had a team of us that were setting out to make tuition free for Indigenous students for by the way, the state of Colorado to do it. And you could imagine as we were analyzing it and I was doing the financial analysis, I just kept getting, Kelly, we want more information, more analysis. What's the real risk? What's the high end? And there's a point where you're like, hey, we're not going to know all of that. And we got everybody to tip and say yes, and it is working beautifully. And my point was, if it doesn't work beautifully, we could stop. You could be like, my bad, totally can't do that, back the train up, right? We'll finish the commitment, we've made it, but, and I think you forget you can do that with these kinds of things where you go forward, and if it's not working, you can back it up and make a different choice. And so you can tell I tend to lean toward action and change, and I don't think I'm crazy risky, but I tend to be able to assess risk for where the real risk is and what is just perceived risk. And I think that will be good for the city.
On many levels, no doubt. Let's throw it back to the panel. I know Molly's got a whole book full of questions there.
Let's go, Molly.
I do, but I was going to ask you a fun question.
Oh, good.
Figured, went hard on the first couple. Tell us about a time when you've really enjoyed biking in Denver. What's one of your favorite routes? What's a favorite commute, a favorite moment? Just give us some feels.
Great question.
I have so many. I'm going to give you a couple. So when I started riding 30 years ago, it really had nothing to do that I was a big cyclist. I had a cheap bike, and I didn't have a lot of money. And I wanted to ride my bike because parking I thought was expensive. It was literally like $1.75 a day. I think this is so funny, right? But gas and parking, I was like, wow, it'll be cheaper for me to ride my bike. And I was riding 12 and a half miles one way. So I had a 25-mile commute. And it was awesome. Like, one, I felt so good saving all the money, but two, I also started to feel great, just the physical activity, the separation from work, the time that it would take me to ride and get home. So it was awesome. And I lived in Southwest Denver, so I basically I'd ride south down, roll all the way in, and you could just fly. Of course, I'm not that fast, but it felt like I was flying to me because nobody else was on that trail. Last summer, when I was deciding to run for mayor, I decided to try to ride every single neighborhood in Denver, which was also amazing. And when you're nice and slow, you get a good look at the neighborhoods. So I got a great look. And you know what I really discovered? So now I'm covering ground I had never seen. A few things really stood out to me. One, just so the unique character of neighborhood by neighborhood, the small little gems, things I had never seen. In like people would have painted stones, you know, when I would be riding by a park, or it was amazing. But a couple things really stood out. On the west side where I raised my kids, I was like, it is 10 degrees warmer over here. We have no tree canopy. I wouldn't get out of my car either. And I felt the same in northeast Denver. And it really started to stand out to me where we have terrible sidewalk infrastructure, how hard Mississippi is to cross. Right? All these places that I was riding that I had never been. And it gave me a lot of insight into the improvements we have to make, but also how beautiful our city is.
So you biked every neighborhood in the city.
I did, yeah. I'm thinking I may try to do it every single year, like have a day or, you know, a few weekends in the summer where we all go out and meet and just ride around. And it is fun. You know, I found great little shops and restaurants to stop and eat. It was really fun. Mm-hmm. And I got friends to do it with me.
So I just got to throw this out there real quick. You may remember Mayor Wellington Webb before he was mayor.
He walked it.
He ran that ad about the walking in the shoes. I'm just throwing that out there. Might be a good. Jordan, would you like to ask a question?
First, I love the idea of going around and doing like a community ride, so let's set that up.
Cool.
This is another one that I fielded from just like customers walking in. There's a large concern about like tint laws for cars and not being able to have driver to cyclist connection. Is that something that your administration would look at or try to address?
Yeah. I think this is also an issue for public safety reasons. And I think it's against the law. Not that we care about the law anymore. I know that's so pre-pandemic. But yeah, it concerns me a lot. My general rule in life on my bike is if you don't make eye contact with me, I stop. Because I'm assuming you don't see me. And so having tinted windows is a huge issue for cyclists. It's also a huge issue for a police officer who's approaching a vehicle and you can't see in. And issues like that we rarely really think about. And so I do think we have to get back to following the rules of the game. I have to tell you a kind of a sad part of this story, though. I know some people who had tinted windows. They untinted them. I think they were probably within the rule. But the reason they untinted them is they found people were breaking their window to steal their car, and they wanted people to see they had one of those bars on their, and so they untinted them because when they saw the bar, they would pass by their car. So if you're not motivated to untint your windows, let that be your motivation.